Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. It's Kim here. And these videos that you're going to be seeing for the next little while are all pre-recorded, and I will just put them in whenever I have some slots that need to fill in. I'm still away for the most part and will be for quite a while yet, but I can slip in the odd video as I'm working on stuff. So today I have this, this is a polyester, like a stretchy lining from a skirt. I think, well, it might have been a dress, but these are the skirt parts, as you can see up here. And it's not the easiest fabric to work with as far as sewing or in crafting. I mean, I can cut it up for snippets, but I have so much of this stuff. So I really need to process it as much as I can and get it off of my desk. Or off of my studio floor, wherever it is. So what I'm doing is I'm going to cut this up into strips to use for tassels. So I will have some tassel videos coming up and some other projects where you use long strips of fabric to make kind of dangly things. And so there is no real, I don't follow the grain of the fabric or the which direction it's supposed to be going in. Who knows? This is cut on an angle. I just look for the longest point, and I start cutting. Now, in the case of this polyester, I probably cut most of it in about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. Again, I just eyeball it. I don't really measure. I just like it to be nice and flat, and then it'll be reasonably straight anyway. And using a rotary cutter, I just slide back and forth. And I'm just going to do a couple of these just to show you. And my blade is dull, so I have to do it twice. And plus there's little threads that stick out. And I just pile them up. Right now I'm working in the other side of the studio, so it's outside the studio. So it's not the best lighting. It's also, I don't know if my camera's going to start shaking and there's probably a lot of shadow. And I just cut them into strips, like I said, 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. Sometimes I make them wider, knowing that I can always cut them. But this is not the easiest fabric to work with, so I just cut them into strips that I know I'm going to use for tassels. There's so many garments to cut up in the world. If I cut this one all into strips that are for tassels, the next one can be for something else. When I cut these up too, and I will go into that process as well, I either cut the whole thing until I get down to just a small little piece, and then the small pieces, of course, go into my scrap bucket. Now, this one, I cut off the salvage edge here, the serged edge. I will use that in, some kind of clustery thing or, some kind of scrappies on my tags and stuff. And of course, I keep all of these garment tags that are on here with the idea that eventually I'm going to have a project that I use these in. Now, did I start this one? No, so I'm going to keep going here. Now, I'm not going to make you watch me do the whole thing. I've already done half the skirt. And this is just the other half. Until I have a nice big pile of them. And I have a special place where I hang these in my studio until I have, sort of a color combination of several shades of pink, or maybe I want to use this salmon pink with other colors like ivory or white, depending on what I'm working on, of course, maybe a champagne color. And so I hang them up, and, it's not in my way. I see them so that I can be re-inspired by seeing them. And then when I cut up the next garment that is in these kind of shades, of course, I put it with it. And I'll show you that in a second. So just going to do one more here, and then I will stop and show you what I do next with these. So this garment, I will go like I said, I looked for the longest point. So eventually I'm going to get to this area here where it's only going to be about 8 or 10 inches. So I will cut that off, and this piece here will go into my scrap bucket. It's not worth trying to sew with it. It's too stretchy. You know, my machine isn't set up for that. My machine's set up for sewing on paper mostly. But it's not something I like to work with. So it will go in my scrap bucket, and I will get to use it. My scrap buckets are divided up by color, so this will go into the shades of pink, of course. And then when the bucket gets too full, the container gets too full, the plan is to weed it down. And there are several projects I use to do just that, whether I'm making snippet rolls or clusters, or you know, I do use it in my tags and sewing. If I'm working with stuff where I need pink, I'll just go grab the pink bucket and work with it. But either way, I will take you along when I'm actually doing that kind of stuff. My videos coming up are going to be more work oriented, where you see me work and you see what I do with these things, instead of showing you something that's totally unrelated to what I'm working with. So there's going to be a big change in the videos as we go along, and that will reflect on the future and how things look. So I will come back to working on this one after. But to give you an idea now, I've got these strips here, and how I store them is on a pin. So I just take and stick a pin through them. I also do this method for small pieces of ribbon, and they hang in the same places. Anything that's less than a yard doesn't get carded. It goes onto a pin. And this way I have quick, easy access, whether it be ribbon, this type of stuff, or fabric. I can come along and just, if I only need a 3-inch piece, I can come and cut a piece off like this, and it's still hanging from the pin. And so in this case, these are all going to be one solid collection, because I still have to finish the rest of this after the camera's off. But I will have them all together. And then in the case of laces and trims and things that are under a yard, I put them on here to use those up first. They're kind of my scrappy bits, and that's my method of keeping them in line and getting things used up. I tend to, when I want a piece of ribbon or lace, I will go to those piles first, or that are hanging, and see if I can use something off of there before I go to the rolls and to the carded pieces. So then once this is full, now like I said, I've already done half of the skirt, and you know, it ends up being quite full on here. So by the time I get this half done, I will have quite a collection of these strips, and you know, they look nice, they feel nice. And it's, again, inspiration for me for when I want to make a tassel or do something with it. Like, wouldn't this make a beautiful tassel just by itself? But I will add in things like laces and fibers and wool and all kinds of things. But when we're making tassels, I will show you that. So to store this, of course, I'm going to finish loading this up with this one. But once it's stored or pinned, then I have a shower hook that I put these onto. And they sit like this. If I end up where I've got, you know, 10 different things on here, I may use a second shower hook as what hangs, and use this one to hold all the pink stuff together. So I can just close this. It's not going to come off, and this just hangs in a spot in my studio with all of the other colors. Like, each color is separated so I can have an easy, quick visual, because sometimes maybe you're working on something that's green, but you don't necessarily want a green trim or a green ribbon. So you may scan the whole area and go, oh, I think I'll add some pink in there, or some burgundy or something. So the whole idea is to have a nice visual, have it be attractive and inspiring at the same time. So that's how I cut up a polyester skirt like this that I would probably never use otherwise. I wouldn't use this on the inside of a book cover. I certainly wouldn't use it on the outside. I may cut it into wider strips to use for snippet rolls as an accent color, or a base color, I should say. not as what I would sew my snippets onto. I would use this in little chunks on a snippet roll. Excuse me, but that's probably as far as I'm going to get with using it, other than cutting into strips or using it for clusters. And there will be plenty of scrap left over when I cut off this piece here to set aside for clusters. So that's this piece of fabric. Now, Thelma bought this top when she was here, and it's been sitting in the pile, and I couldn't figure out why it was still here, but she didn't like it to wear, and I think she took the buttons because there are no buttons on this thing. So I wanted to show you another method for me to cut this up. Now, I used to, or I still do, I shouldn't say I used to. I always rip open the seams for the most part, but a lot of these have that serged edge, which makes it a little harder to cut them up or to take them apart. And, you know, by the time you finish taking them apart, they're so chewed up that it's really not, it's not really usable unless you're going more for the shabby look. So in this case, there's some lace on the bottom. So I'm just going to cut this seam open just at the underarm here. And I've turned it inside out. And it's a lovely polka dot. Now, I don't use a lot of black, but I do use black as an accent on some things. So I'm just running along the seam. I'm leaving a little extra, and I'll explain that as well when I'm done here. And I'm going to cut right into the lace because what I'm going to use this for, I already have sort of a plan. It really doesn't matter. So I've cut this right off completely. It has a little tag here that says 100% polyester. So I will use this in my scrappy bits one way or another. And of course, I'm saving all these tags. And it looks like there was a spare button. Oh yeah, it's a very shiny button. Now I know why the buttons are all missing. So I've opened up that one seam at the arm all the way down. Yeah, so it's open there. I'm going to open up the shoulder because we want to take this whole garment apart. Now I could do this off camera, but I know some of you like to see what I'm doing. And if you don't, just fast forward to the next section. So again, this goes into my black scrap bucket. I do use, you'd be surprised at the things I use in my stuff. Now I'm going to take this whole collar off, and that'll go into the scrap bucket. And I will take this off of here to put in with my garment tag. So I'm just going to run across the top. Now this isn't how I take every shirt apart, but for today, this is how I'm taking this one apart. Now this is a thicker double folded collar, and when I go to use it, I will take my seam ripper and open it up completely and get twice the mileage. Well, it depends. You know, I may use it like this as well. This would actually be a nice piece to further enhance, you know, just as it is. Well, I'll take this thing off. But just like it is, I can further enhance this with a piece of lace going down this side to cover the rough edges, add some buttons, sequins, and trims, and I've got a nice piece that I can use for a belly band or to make a little tabs or a little tuck spot on a page. So this is a fun little piece right there. So I've taken that off. And then this is the top seam here. I'm going to just, and like I said, depending on the garment, I would open up all these seams. But when it's got that serged edge, it's just brutal to take apart. Now this one is, sorry, I hope I'm doing the camera all this time. This one is a little bit ruffly. So it's already ready to use on something, like on a snippet, or as this could be a cute little tab on the side of a page or something. So fun stuff to work with. And it came free with the garment. So I've freed up this one piece. And There's a lot going on up here as far as, you know, there's lace trimming on here. I could take it off completely. But this might be good to use for some type of flips or something in a journal. So I'm gonna leave like just this basic 3 rows where it's got this curve here. I think I'll take that off and put into my scrap bucket. And then it was a capped sleeve with this this trim on it. So again, this just, I'm going to put it into my scrap bucket knowing that I'm probably going to use this on snippets, because I could just cut a little square like that, and it would make a nice little accent piece on a snippet with the lace trim on it. I may decide to take the lace off after, but I don't have a lot of black right now in my bucket, so I'm just going to open the seam up again one more time and just keep that as a separate little piece. And so, okay, so this will just go into my scraps like that, and it will be something that I will work off of as I need something, because I could just cut this like this. This is that cap sleeve. I could just cut it like this, square off the top, and I have an instant little flip with the trimming on the bottom. Or I can make it a little bit wider, cut it, fold it down, make it a little bit wider, and I have an instant pocket. So the bottom is already finished. I may either stitch or slow stitch the edges down, or glue them down to a book page, and then maybe trim them with some trim or something. But it's an instant pocket like that. I could probably squeeze 2 out of here if I was really trying. Yeah, I could get 2 out of here. So a fun way to use this sleeve, and then still have a little bit of pieces left over for a snippet. So something like this, when I'm using it, looks like a bug, doesn't it? It's just pieces of this. Something like this, if I were to use this and make the 2 pockets to go in my journal, I would also incorporate these pieces right into the journal one way or another, whether it's a cluster, a snippet piece, or a tag piece. Or a tab, not tag, or to trim the edge of a tag, so that there is cohesiveness in the collection of color and design and elements that I use. So this is a perfect little piece to stick in my stash. When I want something, I just go in there and look for it. But it is going into the scrap bucket. So then, as I was saying, this curved piece here, I don't think I want to keep that as part of this piece. I think I'm going to cut it off at this lace here. Because there's a lot of gathering going on, it's not something that I can easily use in sewing. And it's, again, this silky type of fabric. So I don't think I would use this for anything more than pockets or, you know, clustery type things. So I'm just going to square it off a little bit, knowing that I will put it in my scrap bucket. And it's not to say the other pieces aren't going in there too. They are. But this just now speaks to me a little bit more as far as an element that can be used in my journals. And then this is a part of where I guess the buttons were sewn on. You got the shiny buttons, Thelma. But if you turn it this way, because this is finished on the top here, it's got a seam. So it's like they've done half the work for me for making pockets and tucks. So I can take this now and cut it straight like that, and then just do a little bit of finishing around the edges as far as you know, either trimming it or lace or just leaving it shabby. Instant flip, instant pocket. More possibilities for pockets, and you can see I've got a top finished seam, and I've got this lace around the bottom, and it kind of looks nice with the shabby polka dots on the bottom as well. So that is just going in my bucket until I need a piece like this to go in my journals. So then, and this is only the one side. We haven't even done the back. So now I still have, this was the bottom, I think. Yeah, this was the bottom. Here's the lace trim on the bottom. And then I still have this side where the rest of the buttons were that I cut off. And I have this curved part that I that I said was more for scraps. I will probably remove the lace on here and put the lace, again, this isn't a 1 yard piece. So this piece of lace would get taken off of here and put on a pin and hang in my studio. So when I come along and I want a piece of lace in that color, oh, my dog is going to join us because I'm in the open basement here. But when I want a piece of lace in that color, it will be hanging there where I can visually see it right away. And you know, maybe I only need a 4-inch piece. I will cut off what I need, or maybe I need the whole length. I'll just take it off the pin. So that's how I store those and how I use them. So I'm just going to cut this right off. And I will, like I said, off camera, I will take it and probably take the lace right off of it. Though I would, you know, it would look nice just like that, stuck in my, if I stick it in my bucket when I come along. Now I do wash most of the garments that come in beforehand, so I'm not dealing with, you know, something that's ugly. Would I even bother cutting that off? So that, you know, they're clean to work with. And if they have underarm stains, I just cut those off right away. But for the most part, you know, I do check the garments quite thoroughly to make sure that I'm not putting something I don't really want. So the rest of this now, again, you know, there's the lace trim on the bottom. This just says pockets right here. I don't have to do anything else to this. So I'm going to leave this piece the way it is into my bucket, knowing that I can decide how deep. You know, this would make some really cute flips. Like if I had this as a flip in my journal, wouldn't that be a cute flip? And you can make them quite long. So I'm going to leave it, not knowing what I'm going to do with this yet. You know, I could cut it off, cut it into strips for ruffles, cut it into strips for tassels. But at this point, I'm going to leave it because there's this nice finished seam. There's a lot of possibilities. Even if I use this part of it for flips, I still have the rest of this that has this nice seam on it that I can use this way to make something and have it finished at one end. So this is how this is going to go into my bucket. And you may think, oh my gosh, that's a lot of stuff going in that bucket. But you know, when you start cutting up a garment into pieces, it doesn't take near as much room as it does when it's a full-size garment. So we only took the one side. So I have the whole back here and I have the other side. So you can see there's this huge piece for the back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off this other sleeve here, turn it inside out, and do exactly the same thing, except I won't put you through the cutting the whole garment into pieces, but I'm just going to cut this off here. Where are we? First, I want to cut off the sleeve. Okay, I guess I have to go the long seam first. And everything gets used. As we go along and I have more time to work on my projects, I will take you along for all of this, that you can see how everything gets used. I don't waste anything wherever possible. Deb and Jen, I had a chance to be with them thrifting, and we went to an antique market. So I've taken this off here. So again, this will go into my bucket of scraps. And they were saying, how can you keep every single Value Village tag that comes off of things? They're full of holes. They're folded. You've got to flatten them out, and then you've got to cover them. Yeah, I do have probably a couple hundred of those in my stash. That's just, isn't that scary? That just shows you how many things I bought over the time. that I do pick from once in a while, but I get tired of doing that too. Although I just came up with a new thing that I'll show you one of these days for tags, fun things. But I've got quite a stash of those holy tags to repurpose and reuse. And there comes a point where you can't keep everything. You got to push it through as much as possible. And so yeah, now I am recycling those pieces because yeah, I can't keep it all. So here's the other cap sleeve. So you saw what I was going to do with this. You saw the possibilities. Into my scraps it goes. And I'm still trying to cut this apart. So bear with me while I do the next seam here. Okay, I've got that one big piece, the back. And this one I will do off of camera, but it's the same thing except in the reverse. Now, the fun part about this is, well, the buttons are all gone because Thelma took the buttons. So this could almost be an episode of Thelma Made Me Do It because I'm pretty sure that pink skirt was hers too. It was just sitting in the pile waiting to be cut up. So in this case, I've got all the loops from buttons. So I could take this now, and you saw how I cut off this curved piece to use for harvesting the lace, but I'm keeping this piece flat and straight. Can you see what I could do with this? I could turn this into a pocket, and then I can have things dangle from here because these loops are sewn right in. So they're ready to go. They're just screaming to have something wonderful dangling from them. So when I cut this out, I will, of course, keep it intact, knowing that I have a finished edge here. And I would just have to, either fold my pocket up this way, if that's what I'm going to use it for, or if it's going to be a flip, then I might cut it to a higher or a longer length, but then I can have things dangle from here. Isn't that fun? So that's how I will cut this piece. And then the same with this one. I'm going to leave it intact because I don't know if I'm going to cut it this way and use these for dangles. Maybe I'm going to cut part of it this way as well to make pockets with lace trim on the bottom or flips with lace trim on the bottom. But even this would be so cute, just keeping two of the loops, cutting it here and making a flip and then having things dangle from it. Can you see that? I hope you can see that. So that I will work on off camera. You don't need to see me do that. So then comes this back piece. And as I mentioned, now look how big of a piece this is. This is amazing. Now some of the lace looks like it's pulled away from here, but I won't worry about that until I'm actually going to use the garment. Or use the fabric, and then I can fix it. But I'm just folding it up here to match the lace to the lace. And I'm not going to worry about it being perfect too much. Now, if I were to use this as the bottom, whether it be for a pocket or for a flip, I know for the most part in my journals are mostly, 9 inches tall. So I don't like a flip to go more than about 7 inches. 7 inches being really long to me, but I will cut it at 8 just to make sure I have options. So I'm just going to take, it's folded over. So I'm just going to take this cutter or my blade, and I'm just going to cut across there. And I'm not going to try to even line up to the polka dots. That's nearly impossible, especially with this slippery fabric like this. Okay, so this will now get folded up into my black bucket, and it will be ready to use for flips, pockets. Maybe it's very silky, but I may use it as patches on a journal cover on the inside, just something little extra. I don't know, but I will keep it like this intact, but it flattens up so nicely that it really doesn't take up any room. And so we'll worry about this piece later, but here is that big top. Once it's all taken apart, I still have to finish taking the rest of it apart, the front there with the loops on it. But here's all the pieces. So it doesn't take up much room now. you know, when everything is folded up nicely and flat and you know, organized, this would fit very nicely into my bucket and not take up a lot of room. That's all the little scrappy bits. And then I will take that label off yet, and the store label off. But you can see it doesn't take up much room, so it will fit very nicely in my bucket. Now, when I say bucket, it's each color is a clear container. I do use some containers from repurposed from when you buy like Roma tomatoes in a plastic container with a little button tab there. I use those. I'll show you one day, but I'm just going to put that aside now so you see how much it doesn't take up much room. I usually can fit about 5 or 6 garment pieces that are not for journals into the bucket, and then when it gets that full, then I've got to process it another way. So I'm left with this other piece here, the top of the top. Ooh, there's more of that scrap. And it's been folded over. I'm just gonna refold it because I think I slid it a little bit. And I'm going to cut this into strips. Now, this one will be cut wider. And again, I don't worry too much, you know, if it's perfectly lined up. I certainly don't match the polka dots. Stripes are another nightmare, but I do try to line it up. The first couple of cuts are not always the nicest, but those go into tassels. So I'm just gonna, so now that I've got it kind of straight, and it is folded, so it's twice the length. So that's 9 to 6, okay, 6, 10, 11, 12, 13. So it's about, well, it's over 20 inches, you know, because each piece will be different, right? Because of eventually I'm going to run out of the full length. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this sort of straight. And I'm not, again, too concerned that it's perfect. It's not about being perfect for what we're doing and using this stuff for. So this will, because it's not really, well, it could be used for a tassel. I just have to trim it back a little bit. I'll keep it as a tassel. So now I'm going to cut these about 1.5 inches. Okay, approximately. Sometimes I cut them 2 inches, but usually 1.5 inches is what I like to work with. And so I will have these strips and they will get pinned together the same way that I pin for tassels, but these are not for tassels. These are going to be for making ruffles. So when I've got this all cut, I will pin it together. And when I have a few seconds on the sewing machine and I have black thread in, because I do organize myself in that manner, I will grab all of these strips, and we're going to cut them together here, and I will stitch them all together to make some polka dot. Isn't this going to be the cutest thing ever in the polka dots? Now, once I've made this ruffle, it will probably be about maybe 7 or 8 inches. When I get to the end here, I will, before I've run out of room, I will overlap the next piece and stitch that together. So I have one long, huge ruffle. And then I cut off pieces as I need it. You know, maybe I only want a little snippet for something. I will cut off pieces as I need it. And then I can decorate it further by adding things like buttons or sequins or braided trims to further enhance it if I want to. Maybe offset it with other colors like, you know, red or silver or gold to really make it bling out. And so that's how I use these pieces. So I will, when I sit down at the sewing machine, when I have black thread, right now I've got white in my machine, so I can't do it right now. But I will do the whole thing, and then I will card it. So it gets carded and goes in with my ruffles, and it's ready to use when I want to use it. It doesn't get always decorated at the beginning because I don't want to get stuck with something that's got silver and I'm doing something that's black and gold. Not that I do a lot of black, but that's the point. So I will continue now to make these about 1.5 inches, and I don't fuss over the size, you know, because a lot of times I make these ruffles And I make them 1.5 inches wide, and then I end up trimming them back after anyway, because I don't worry about them being perfect. It's something that you can fix as you go along. This is all supposed to be kind of shabby anyway. So about 1.5 inches. Sometimes there's a little thread that gets caught. And just moving it over here. I really need to change my blade. Until I get to the point where these are short now. So there's my ruffle, but these are getting shorter. So I'm going to, let's just have a look here. 7 to 16. So they're about 9. So they're about 18 inches long at the end here. So I'm going to now go back to my 1/2 inch strips. And this will go into my tassels. And I leave those long, jaggedy points at the end here because sometimes, you know, they look really cute on a tassel when they're hanging in there like that. So that's what I do with this silky material. Bet you're sorry you left this behind now, Thelma, huh? I love when she leaves stuff behind because I love showing her what she missed out on. She just shakes her head at me. Missing you, darling. When Thelma and I are together, it's like I think we need to have a rest after, just because we don't stop. Our brains never shut off. But you can see how quick, now this is folded over, so, you know, it makes longer strips. And if I have to, you know, if I have a couple of short strips and they're not long enough for the tassel that I'm making, I just stitch them together or glue them together depending on the material. And I'm just moving this over so that it's not at the edge of my... So that's the thing, when you are working with this silky material, every once in a while it'll go wonky on you if you move it. Because they won't line up perfectly. Until I get to the point where it's not long enough. But in this case, I think I can probably cut the whole thing. If not, I will put the last piece in my scraps. Okay, one more. I think I'll just take it to the edge there. Okay, so these little pieces will go in my scraps. And then taking a pin. Now I will also pin these together, but I only brought 2 pins. I wasn't thinking ahead here. And I will just grab the ends. And pin them all together. I hope you guys are having a good summer and that you're enjoying yourselves, doing some barbecues, eating fun, cool things of summer. Isn't it fun to go for ice cream and just do these outdoor carnival things? And we've enjoyed ourselves a little bit this summer. We've had some personal issues to deal with, but we've also had some time to go do some camping, and so we've been to St. Martin's to camp there. Oh my goodness, seafood galore. No shortage of scallops on the coast, that's for sure. And we've been to PEI. We stayed in a nice place. Now the name isn't coming to me, but it's very close to Cavendish. And if you live in Canada, that's where Cavendish French fries are made. PEI potatoes. Okay, so there is my black tassel pile going. And so, you know, you can see how easy this is to process it, get it done. Now all I have to do is change my thread to black. When I do, then I will sew those up, and they will go get carded and put away right away, because that's how I like to do things as much as possible. I have my pink tassel started, and I'm going to be keep going with finishing this one off yet, so we're not done that yet. But there is my scraps that are going to my black bucket, except for this little piece. I do let these things go. Sometimes I don't, though. Sometimes I use them. And whatever's left over in the pink will go in my pink bucket, because I've already done some and put it away. That's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, all of these are going to be pre-recorded through the next little while. And hopefully I will get back on track and be able to do more stuff early fall. And I will let you know as things go along how the process is. So have yourself a very creative day, or if not, get out in the sunshine and enjoy the sunshine. Oh my gosh, I have to pick berries again. The berries are just crazy here, but I'll save that for another video. Bye for now. See you soon.